Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. We interview business owners who built successful businesses to learn from them their history and how they built a business. Today we're very fortunate to have with us Mr. Frank Dominguez, the founder and president of Dominguez Sheet Metal Works. Mr. Dominguez, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you, sir.
It's a real pleasure. I've been wanting to get your story for a long time. So what is Dominguez Sheet Metal Works?
It's a heating, cooling, refrigeration installation, but mostly we specialize mostly in sheet metal.
Sheet metal in what kind of sense?
In anything that's made out of sheet metal, we fabricate it.
Like what kinds of things require sheet metal?
Tanks, doors, we've made doors, a lot of ductwork, like what you see up here. Mm-hmm. And mostly anything that's made out of sheet metal, we fabricate it or try to fabricate it.
So that's your expertise, is sheet metal?
Yes, sir.
And how many years you been in business now?
52 years.
Wow.
Since 1960.
And you started the business?
Yes, sir.
Wow. So, Mr. Dominguez, what neighborhood did you grow up in?
We grew up, what would you say? It was Finley and Piedras, which is on the south side of the canal.
Right by Bell School.
Yeah, south. In fact, there's a big fire over there yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
Big
Wow.
fire. Uh-huh.
And so you went to Bell School and
Bell School.
And then Bowie?
From Bell School, they sent us to Bowie for junior high, and then we stayed there for high school.
And what year did you graduate from Bowie High School?
I did not graduate from
You did not? You left?
I left when I was a sophomore, and eventually I joined the service, the Navy, and through the Navy I took all the courses and was able to complete my high school education.
Okay, in the Navy.
Which we got, about 4 or 5 years ago.
That's right, they awarded you diplomas
Mm-hmm.
after. But you went into the service.
Yes.
Where did you serve in the service?
Mostly on the Pacific, all the Pacific, but San Diego, San Francisco, that was our base. But it was mostly Japan, all the Pacific.
In the Navy?
In the Navy.
During the Korean War?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And so you come back. How many years were you in the service?
4 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you come back in what year?
56.
And so here you are, a young man. You've done your service.
Mm-hmm.
So what'd you do? Come to El Paso and look for a job?
No, before I went in the service, I was already working for a sheet metal shop here in El Paso, Southwestern Sheet Metal.
Okay.
And so I knew a little bit about the business, and as time went by, I ended up with a business because they moved.
Tell me about that. Who owned that Southwest Sheet Metal?
It was Mr. and Mrs. Alex Janke, and then Bill Castrin was a grandson or something like that. But I worked mostly with Alex Janke Jr., which was the son of the people that founded Southwestern. And he established a shop in the Lower Valley, which was non-union, because it was hard to get into union. And I went with him, and luckily it worked out okay. I ended up with a business.
So how many years did you work for them?
About 6 years, because I worked with them before I joined the Navy, and then when I came back, then he passed away in 58, and I was able to manage the business till 1959 for the widow. Then they decided to move up to New Mexico, and so I ended up with a business.
Fantastic. So you were able to buy the business from them?
At a very, very reasonable price.
Really? That was because they liked you.
Well, her son and I, we used to run around together all the time.
And the son didn't want the business?
Not really.
Yeah.
So I was able to negotiate, and
Good.
I ended up with a business.
Good. So about 58, you end up with a business. And by the way, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 brothers and a sister.
And I know one of your brothers is known for running the marathons.
David, yes.
He's
And my other brother, Jose Dominguez, was an internal revenue agent.
Okay.
Working out of Houston.
Wow.
But he passed away.
Okay. And one sister?
One sister.
And what does your sister do?
She has a business of her own. She's a factory representative. El Paso Max.
Okay. And so you start the business, and were you married at the time?
Yes. I had just gotten married.
Okay. So then your children start coming along after you start the business too?
Yes. The oldest one came 2 years later.
How many children do you have?
I have two boys and a girl.
And
they're with me.
They're all working with you. And and their names?
It's Frank Dominguez Jr., Patrick Dominguez, and Francine Dominguez.
And they're all working with you. They grew up in the business.
Right.
Well, that's a legacy. That's wonderful. So here you are. Now you start the business. Where did you open up a new place, or did you start where you were?
No, I had to move out of there because the zoning, they had changed it or something. So I ended up on Alameda in a little pool hall. And then it got too small for us, and at that time I was doing work for Mr. Mike Dipp, and I was able to get an old supermarket from him at a very good price too.
Did he have a market there?
No, he just owned the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was on Alameda?
On Alameda, 3128 Alameda.
And that's where you still are today?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow. And so when you start the business, what kind of support did you have, or lack of support?
Well, I knew the customers that I wanted to go after, and I did. And that was mostly the garment industry, which was Levi's and Farrah and all those people. And I was able to get in there, and that's really what made Dominguez Sheet Metal.
Because that was a growing industry.
But I did work for White House, Popular, Rainbow Bread, and I was all over. Because at that time there was only about 4, maybe 5 sheet metal shops in the whole town.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And so I was able to get in there.
And your father, what did your father do?
My father worked for the railroad.
Okay. And was his name Frank too? Or?
No.
Okay.
Jose Joe Dominguez.
Okay.
But right after I came back from the service, he had retired. So I used to pick him up and take him with me riding around town, estimating jobs and stuff like that.
What kind of a man was your father?
Very hardworking man. Very hardworking.
What did you learn from him?
A lot of discipline.
Really? And your mother? Housewife?
Housewife. Mm-hmm.
What kind of a woman was your mom?
A lot of discipline.
So they kept you in.
Oh yeah, all of us.
So here you are. You come back from the service. You know, you finish your high school work in the service, and you start this business. But you were managing the business. So how did you learn to manage the business?
Just stay in there, and with the little high school that I had, I just had to get in there and find a way to handle things, and at the same time get out there and do some installations.
So you worked and managed at the same time. And you weren't afraid to, I guess, take on the challenge.
No, not really. In fact, one of my very first jobs that I got on my own was through the Baines Company on a church, and that was a pretty good sized job, and I was able to get in there and complete it, and that was my first bread and butter.
And so you weren't afraid to take on a challenge, but you're just a hard worker. Was that your key?
I would say so. Mm-hmm. 'Cause, my brother, which he had a college education, my older brother, he helped me with the books, the bookkeeping and stuff like that. Through him, I learned a little.
He helped you for a while?
Yeah.
Before he went to the IRS.
Uh-huh.
And so, you're well disciplined, you're a hard worker, but you started going after getting contracts.
Yes, but word of mouth, it just like the clothing industries, who did this for you? And they start calling. But really, I didn't really go after them because they started calling.
But you must have done good work.
Yeah, that was our goal, and on time.
Okay, and so as you grow the business, did you run into how did you raise the money that you needed when you got a big project? The people that I was doing work for, every 10th of the month you get your money. Really?
Every 10th. It was known. It's not like today. And money was floating around, and I really didn't have to borrow or do anything. If I knew that if I finished this job, that I could get paid sooner, I'd work Saturdays and Sunday and get it. But financial, I didn't really have any. So you funded your own growth. Right. Were there other business owners out there that helped you along? That I did work for them or whatever? Or other business people that were friends? Call Dominguez, that's all I could hear. Yeah. Yeah, we did the schools, we did not big jobs, little jobs. Had Rainbow Bread, Purity, remember Purity? Yeah. Purity. And Meats, all those people, they just the factories, the plants and the factories. Right. But insulation, sheet metal. But how about running the business? I mean, how did you learn that? That was a chore? Call my big brother. Really? Yeah, he helped me a lot. Did you have anything happen that was a major obstacle at any time? No, not really. Not really. You just took jobs and got them and performed and did you have long times of not having a lot of work? Not at that time. In the old, we could have worked 7 days a week if we wanted to. So it was really in your favor that the clothing industry was growing here. Oh yeah. And then they started moving a lot of them started moving to Mexico and little by little, a lot of them closed or moved, mostly. Yeah. So later in the 70s, 80s, when they started closing down, then how did you adjust? We had plenty of work, really. I don't know. Oh, I did a lot of work for Kessler. Okay. Mr. Cal Kessler. He was always calling me. We need this, we need that. He had a large factory, a manufacturing plant. Very large factory. And he was a hard worker. He helped a lot of business. Yeah. Yeah. And so as you're growing now, your brother, your older brother helped you, and your younger brother David, did he help you too? Oh yeah, my younger brother helped me a lot. A lot.
In
He still does.
in managing the business or in
Managing and estimating and whatever it was needed. We both got together. And
what did you do to make sure that you were making money, not losing money?
Well, just accounting, just we pay this comes in, stuff like that. Because we finally had to get an accountant because my brother couldn't take it anymore. It was too much. It was getting too much for him. And then he got transferred to Houston, so I had to do it on our own. And we had an accountant help with that.
So you grew.
Mm-hmm.
So, how many employees did you have as you grew? You grew from how many to how many?
Well, I started with 2, and I would have 1 or 2 more. Eventually, we had about 30 at one time, including my brother. But now I think the economy has slowed down a little. So right now we're about 20, and that keeps us going.
That's plenty of work.
Yeah.
And what do you do now with the business? What is your role with the business?
Well, I still go there and walk around the shop and hey, you this, hey, that. It's something you'll never get out of me. He says, why don't you retire? Just do what?
Yeah.
I go there and open up sometimes. Stay there till like a management. Any problems?
So business has been your life.
Yeah, it is. Let me tell. Before that, I used to work as a carpenter.
Really?
A helper carpenter with a cousin of mine, and I made good money as a carpenter because I liked carpentry.
Really?
But then I started seeing the sheet metal guys go in there and do the installation. I said, well, maybe I'll follow the sheet metal trade. But carpentry was one of my...
You really enjoy it. Do you still do some carpentry?
Not anymore, but I know quite a bit of it.
Wow. But you really enjoyed sheet metal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
What's interesting about sheet metal?
Well, the layout part of it. In fact, I used to go to the Tech on Oregon Street at night.
El Paso Tech.
And I took up drafting and stuff like that. Plus what I had learned at Bowie, drafting, mechanical drawing and stuff. But I don't know, it just fascinates me to see a flat sheet go into...
You can make that happen. Bend it and fold it and creep it.
When I was at the other shop with Mr. Janke, we used to do a lot of work for the cotton gins. Those big cyclones and the big blowpipe and stuff like that. Was something else too.
So a cotton gin, that's not something that we're familiar with anymore.
No.
What did the cotton gin do?
Well, at that time, they would sell all the machinery, but not the piping cyclones, and that's where we would come in. Once they set the machinery, we would go there and build all their piping and stuff like that. But then later on, the people that sold the equipment would sell the equipment complete with the ducking and stuff, so that went out.
Oh, really? But cotton gin was a big business here.
Around here. Arizona, we used to do work for Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. I used to meet with the superintendent every Saturday morning. He would give me a list of what they needed because he would go from gin to gin.
Really? Wow.
Then he'd send a truck and pick everything up.
What was the product of a cotton gin?
The cotton.
They would bale the cotton? They would clean it?
Clean it.
That's what the gin did,
and
okay.
Bale it.
So a lot of suction and...
Yeah.
And that's where your tubing came in.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
it was interesting work.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your growing up in El Paso. What was it like to be growing up when you were a teenager?
Well, as far as growing up as a teenager and stuff, I never had any problem. At work, like I said, at that time there was only about 4 or 5 sheet metal shops, and I have to tell you this. Welsh, there was a shop by the name of Welsh, which was a union shop, and Wilson. They were good size government jobs. And when Mr. Welsh decided to quit or close up or retire, he called me and he says, "We're quitting." He says, "I've been taking the pleasure of recommending you to my customers, so you're welcome." And I got a lot of customers to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
You didn't have to buy his business. He just gave you his customers, recommended you to.
Right.
So why was that? Because you did good work? Because
I would say so. I'm a perfectionist as far as sheet metal. I want everything to be straight, and my former boss, I'd be up there on the roof setting up a cooler, and he'd half a block away, he'd go by in his car and say, "Hey, that's a quarter of an inch off."
really,
And I grew up like that. I like everything level and straight.
how critical is that?
Well, I think it represents the type of work you do, but in a lot of equipment, everything has to be pretty level, especially in evaporative cooling when it's water. It has to be level. But it just, I don't know, it's just something that I pride in it.
Well, you know, I appreciate that because I know I still have an evaporative cooler, and I have, you know, the stand that they made is not level, and water comes out one side because it's not level.
That's right.
That's what you're talking about.
Right.
If it's not level.
Okay.
So how did you train your people to be exact?
They better carry a level.
Really?
Yeah, they'll carry a level. You see a big, nice house with a cooler lopsided, it defaces everything.
So really, you take pride in your work.
I do.
And where did that come from? From your boss, or?
Probably from my father.
Well, tell me, why was he was exact?
See, like I said, he worked for the railroad, but he'd get home and was always doing something, and I could see it, you know. He built our home where we were raised. He built, and he was always doing something, and I used to hang around with him a lot. I like to, I don't know, see things grow.
So you always liked building and construction and erecting.
Yes.
But when you take on employees now, things change a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What was the biggest challenge when you took on employees?
Well, you really don't know too much about them until they start working for you. And then you got to be checking on them. And after a while, they know what to expect from the company. You want everything level, straight, and nice. And,
And so you're really on top of them.
So is my brother.
So you kind of observe and monitor everything that's going on. I still do. Like I say, I don't get there as much as I want to, because in a way I get tired a little bit now. And but my sons know what I want, and they know what to expect from the employees. So your employees really know what's expected of them.
Right.
And so because they know what's expected, then they know how to perform?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a lot of turnover?
Not really.
People stayed with you for
There's workers there that's been there 25, 30 years.
But you know, do you advertise?
Very, very little.
You don't have to advertise.
No, very little.
Enough work comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So really, you've built a business that has developed a significant name recognition.
Right. I guess.
Well, they know the name Dominguez Sheet Metal. Do they know you?
Probably not as much as they should. It's just the name.
Yeah, I've known the name well, since I was a kid, I've known the name. But you know, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you now. But
Thank you.
But were you involved in a lot of things in the community, or just in your business?
Not really, not really. Because I didn't have the time. I joined this and I joined that. Hey, we're going to have a meeting tonight. And I said, oh, I can't make it. I have to do it, you know. And I should have, but sometimes business responsibilities. It's hard. It's hard.
And how'd you balance family and business?
My kids grew up before I knew that they were up, and I didn't. I wish I had spent more time with them too. But luckily, I had a good wife. I was always PTA meetings and school functions with the kids while I was at work. 'Cause I used to work 7 days a week.
Really? Long hours too. And when you did that, were you doing fabrication yourself?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you've done the fabrication, the oversight, the management. You were doing all of that.
Installation, the whole thing, whatever.
And so you're just a hard worker.
Not anymore.
Yeah, but
I'm running out of gas.
Yeah, but you did that.
Uh-huh.
And so you really enjoyed building the business?
I did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Been worthwhile for you?
Oh yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you raised your family in the business.
Yes.
Well, that's fascinating. So as you built your business, and you know, you're now, you know, slowing your activity down. Let's get into talking a little bit more as we leave our first half and talk more about the future of the business. But you've secured that future because you brought your children in, and they're running it now, right? It's
going to be up to them.
So
and as long as I'm alive, I'll keep an eye on it.
That's right. That's right. But that's what you've always done. You've always kept an eye on your business. That's
Yes.
critical. Well, I appreciate your story, Mr. Dominguez, and we're finishing off the first segment of our interview, and we want to continue in a minute with later with the second segment. And we ask our viewers to stay tuned for our second segment of our interview with Mr. Frank Dominguez of Dominguez Sheet Metal Works. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next segment.